Hello, this is Kerry Schutz from MathWorks. In this video, I'm going to be simulating PLL behavior using Mixed-Signal Blockset. In particular, we're going to be simulating a charge pump integer in PLL in the time domain, and that is as opposed to in the phase domain, which I already covered in some previous videos. We'll be starting with a blank sheet of paper when it comes to modeling. That is, we'll be starting with a blank Simulink model and building up from there. It will be an all Simulink-based approach using functionality from the Mixed-Signal Blockset. Today is more about exploring the art of what's possible, meaning it's more of let's try this, try that, see what happens, more tinkering around. There's far more than that's possible than what we can cover in today's video. So today's really just serving as an introduction to the Mixed-Signal Blockset's PLL capabilities. All right, so let's jump right into it. Okay, so now we're over in MATLAB, and from MATLAB, we want to transition into a Simulink model. So I'm going to just start by saying new model, and I'll just call this test PLL1, and we'll double click on that model and open it up. All right, so this is our literal blank sheet of paper in Simulink. All right, so the first thing let's do is bring in, or instantiate, if you want to look at it that way, an integer in PLL, and that I can just type a shortcut for that and bring in one such block. We can double click on that block and then see the settings on that integer in PLL. Okay, we'll go across these tabs and we'll create a number of settings. Now, before we do that, I am going to set up, shall we say, some input and output blocks. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to pull in a pulse generator, which is going to serve as my PLL reference signal. And I'm going to pull in a time scope just for viewing, visualizing the output. Okay. And that's about as simple as you can get. You've got input and output and some processing in the middle, which is our PLL. And again, this is going to be simulating as we move forward in the time domain, not in the phase domain. So let's do the first thing. We'll start with the input first, and then we'll just kind of move across here. So let's start with the pulse generator, our reference clock. I'm going to say that it has, it's 30 megahertz in frequency, so the period is 1/36. We could set our pulse width to be pretty much anything. It's not critical, but I'll just make it a square wave, so a 50% duty cycle. And that's really all I need to do for starters. Okay, so now I've got a 30 megahertz perfect clock at the input right now. What about the PLL itself? Well, the PLL is by default set up to be configured by different tabs, like a tab for the phase frequency detector, a tab for the charge pump, the VCO, the divider, the loop filter, and then some essentially what you would call probing and analysis capabilities. So let's just start with the phase frequency detector. There's not much here I'm going to set up initially because I'm not going to be enabling many impairments for starters. I'm going to keep this fairly ideal. I'm going to say there's a deadband compensation amount here of 30 picoseconds, and I'll just start with that, a default parameter, default value. For the charge pump current, I'll just change it a little bit. Maybe I'll say it's 5 milliamps. Input threshold for comparison is, I'll just say it's a 0.5 volt. And there's more impairments which we could enable, which I'm not going to do right now. I'll just start with that, keep it fairly ideal. For the VCO, there's a couple different ways to specify its behavior. You could do more like a table of frequency versus voltage values. I'm going to start with a basic linear assumption, use a voltage sensitivity value. I'll say it's 100 megahertz per volt. And I'll say the free running frequency is, I'll say 2E9, okay, 2 gigahertz. Output value, not critical here, but output amplitude 1. Could add phase noise. Again, I'm keeping it pretty ideal for the time being. And then we need to set up the prescaler, really it's the divider in the feedback. And I'm going to say it's a divide value of 70. So if we combine that divider value with our 30 megahertz reference, that would be 30E6 times 70 for a 2.1 gigahertz output clock at the output. Okay. And then finally, there is the loop filter, the last real block of the PLL we need to set. and I'm going to say it's a you can say 1 megahertz PLL, as far as the bandwidth, loop bandwidth, and a 45-degree phase margin. These settings essentially let us design loop filter values based on these system specifications. Again, based on bandwidth and phase margin, and your VCO setting, your charge pump setting, your clock divider value. Based on those settings, it's going to design a certain, select certain component values to achieve said loop bandwidth and phase margin. And so in this case, it selected these values. Okay. Again, there's more impairments we could add, for instance, thermal noise on the resistors, but I'm keeping it simple. And that's mostly it as far as configuring the PLL. I'm also going to probe some signals. I'll probe the phase frequency detector up-down signal and the loop filter output. And so I'll say probe those. And that what that does is brings those signals to the output, to the top level. And then finally, if I did want to analyze like open and closed loop behavior, I could do that. I could just click on plot loop dynamics. And what that's going to do is in the background compute some things like frequency responses, magnitude responses, impulse responses, step responses, things of that sort. Okay. And you can see if you look at the step response, it looks like it settles down the PLL around 1 microsecond. All right, and there's the open loop analysis, more like Bode form of the PLL. All right, so I'm going to close that dialog to the PLL block. We're good now. We've set up every block within the PLL, and now I'm going to pull in another scope here. Let's just pull in another scope, or in fact, I'll just use one scope here. I'll make it big, and we'll put the up-down, the up pulse, the down pulses from the phase frequency detector, and the loop filter. Okay, I'll put that all on a single scope. And let's go ahead and run this model. Now the question is, how long do we want to run it for? I tend to think of run times in terms of the reference frequency. So if the reference frequency is 30, essentially in time 1/36 for one period of the reference, and I wanted maybe 2,000 cycles of the reference to simulate, since essentially the PLL is updating at the reference rate, I will run it for that many cycles, 2,000 reference cycles. We'll see what happens. I'll pull up the scope when it's done initializing. Okay, so let's put that over here. And we've got 4 traces overlaid. What can help in that case a lot of time is just to look at the traces individually. So I'm going to go to View, Layout, and let's do 4 traces all by themselves. And probably the one that's most telling of performance right off the bat, the others are rather, shall we say, dense. But the loop filter plot, which of course is running at the loop bandwidth, not at the clock frequency, the output clock frequency, is easier to visually ascertain what's happening. I'll even zoom in on it a bit, and we'll see that we've got some, what it looks like undershoot and overshoot in the loop filter or the VCO input response, and then it settles down to some steady state voltage, looks like around 1 volt. Okay, and we can zoom out. That's zooming into the kind of, and you see some of the ripple in the transient response. So we see it almost looks like a modulated waveform where you have a typical like second order, third order system type of linear system response with some type of modulation or perturbation on top of it. And of course, that's due to the switching that's going on, the perturbation you see, the switching that's going on in the phase frequency detector and charge pump. Now, if we zoom out again and we go look at steady state, we can also do that. We can zoom on the steady state. We can also see that this system settles down to around 1 volt. And again, there's no real impairments in the system, so you don't really see noise and nonlinearities and all sorts of distortion here because, well, we haven't modeled that yet in this case. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and zoom out. We could also, of course, zoom on the other portions of the waveform. Like for instance, we can look at the output clock. That's the top waveform. We can also see the up and down pulses from the phase frequency detector. You can see, for instance, in the second trace from the top, we can see that the up phase frequency detector up pulses are not on for very long, but that the down pulses are dominant in terms of pulse width or duty cycle. And then as you go on in the simulation, just the opposite happens. You'll see it become more, you see that the top pulses become busier and the bottom pulses won't be. So if I were to zoom out and zoom in to different sections, you'll see it's, the up pulses are busy, the down pulses are busy, and it just toggles back and forth before we essentially get into steady state, which is about after a microsecond or so. Okay, now what about looking under the hood of the block? So far, only thing I've really done is pull in a few blocks, configure the PLL, and run it, and then look at the time domain output. That's a good start. But what if we wanted to look under the block? Well, there's a couple things you can do. The easiest one is just to click on Edit System. Okay, and Edit System will essentially tear apart, you could say, or remove the library link on this block, such that instead of one monolithic block, it becomes a sum of parts, a sum of a phase frequency detector, charge pump, VCO, divider, etc. So right now, it's more like one monolithic block. So there's, of course, I mentioned there's two things you can do. One is you can just right-click on the block and say, look under the mask. Okay, if you look under the mask, then you can see underneath the block. But at this point, you really can't edit it. You can only, it's a read-only library block. Okay, if you wanted to actually edit it, add, remove, and modify the contents at a lower level, you just double-click on the block, hit Edit System. It's going to ask you, are you sure you want to essentially remove the library link, break the link to the library? And I said yes. And now at this point now, I can, if you can see the blocks underlying the top block now. If I double click on this, you see the same thing as before, except now I can do things like, well, I can go in and tweak parameters under here. So of course I can move blocks. You couldn't even move the blocks before. But now I can go in and I could, for instance, if I just wanted to, not that I'm saying you would, but you could certainly just go in at any point in the model now and add something like a gain if you wanted to. So if you wanted to double the gain in the open loop, you could just add a factor of 2 right there. Now that's not something in general I'd want to do. I'd probably want to handle that differently, maybe with a different gain on my VCO or a different charge pump current, maybe handle that differently, but you could certainly now start adding blocks right in the model to edit it, okay? You can also, of course, go in and change the parameters. Now, all of the parameters that you entered at the top level have now been copied in to the sub-blocks under the PLL. So now you can go in and edit all those parameters as well. So for instance, if I wanted to change this to 50 megahertz per volt, maybe I want to change this to, maybe the free running frequency is 1.5 here or something along those lines. Go here and we'll run it again. And I'll stop it here. We don't need to run it for very long. I'm going to go ahead and say just run for maybe 200 cycles of the reference. Let's see what happens. We've got this. And now you can see a far more interesting shape, I would say, almost in the transient response to the loop filter. It's also because I reduced essentially the gain in the open loop that you see a much slower response. Instead of 1 microsecond, you see about 3 microseconds. And you also see these different set of undulations. You almost see 3 sets of dynamics in the transient response now. You see the general response of like a second or third order system. You see some amount of wiggle on that response that we saw before. So if I were to zoom out again and zoom in, we see that same sort of ripple, which is due to the switching in the system there. But you also see some interesting change of directions, like an abrupt change, like it's adapting and then cutting in the other direction. And these are most likely here due to cycle slip. So if we were to go back and look at the actual up-down pulses themselves, we would probably see that we may have 2 consecutive up pulses or down pulses at a particular point, where ideally you wouldn't. In fact, it looks like we might be having one right in this area where, let's see here, where there's an all up, there's down, there's up. Yeah, this part looks okay. Let's kind of go back in time. Let's even go back further. We may be able to see something like that if we go early in the model. It's hard to say exactly, but yeah, I mean, what you're looking for would be something like, you know, 2 consecutive ups or downs. All right, I think I'm going to stop this video there. It's already kind of gone on to about 15 minutes, and then we'll do some follow-on videos and do some deeper dives into modeling PLLs using mixed signal block set. Thank you.